One predictor of physician well-being that needs more attention is the quality of the relationship surrounding a doctor. That's what we're talking about today. If you're a doctor, healthcare leader, or patient, you belong here. I'm Kim Downey, and this is Stand Up for Doctors, conversations at the intersection of connection, courage, and the future of healthcare. By way of a brief introduction, Lisa Muehlenbein is a medical, marriage, and physician burnout strategist with a PhD in health psychology. She's also a speaker, author, and podcast host, empowering medical families and healthcare organizations with the MedLife Matrix. And LynAnn Weaver is a high performance healthcare coach and growth consultant. She's also an executive and physician leadership coach and speaker, connecting physicians to the people, products, and protocols that help them heal more patients. And I always start by asking what you'd most like our audience to know about you as we begin our conversation. Lisa, would you like to go first?
Oh, sure. Uh, what I think is important for the audience to know about me is that I've been married to medicine for nearly 30 years. My husband and I have been together for 29 years. He's a radiologist, and I put my education on hold back in the 90s, and I picked it back up when COVID happened and earned my PhD in health psychology with my dissertation on physician burnout and the marital relationship from the spouse perspective, because I saw exactly what was happening to physicians and their families at the peak of COVID.
Hmm. That is such important work, and thank you. You've already had me on as a guest, on your podcast. So we've had some of these conversations before, and your work is so important. And LynAnn, what would you like us to know about you?
Yeah. I was in healthcare administration for about 15 years before becoming a physician and executive coach. And what really got me into this field was a very personal experience with going from having a physician commit suicide, a non-clinical colleague commit suicide, and then also having just one of those really pivotal career moments where I had a doc come in my office, throw his badge down on my desk, and just like shrink down into the chair, and he goes, "My life is basically falling apart and I don't know what to do. I'm losing my marriage. I'm not able to see my kids at school. My practice isn't growing as quickly as I can. I don't know what to do anymore. Something has to change, or I'm leaving medicine altogether." And at that point, I went, I need to be able to help support him because I don't have an answer. I'd reached out to colleagues across the country, couldn't find a solution. And when I couldn't find one, I decided that I needed to create it. And that was when I really found the world of high performance coaching and dove into everything that we'll be talking about more today.
Well, thank you. And that's a powerful story that you've shared with me in a conversation we had before. And then I was blessed to be able to introduce the two of you. And then Lisa has also hosted you for another powerful conversation. So I feel like every conversation we have just chips away at the silence or surrounding some of these topics, right? And it all makes a difference. So thank you both for what you're doing in these spaces. And so, Lisa, as you said, you've spent years helping medical families navigate the unique challenges of medicine. And LynAnn, you work with physicians and healthcare leaders to perform at their highest level. Why do you think relationships are so often overlooked when we're talking about physician well-being?
This is a great question, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that it is often overlooked. And what I've learned in my research was that when we look at physician burnout, according to the AMA, 80% of the factors that contribute to physician burnout are attributed to the organization. So
Mhm.
when you have the trickle down effect of the organizational factors impacting the physician, and we all know what happens when a physician is experiencing burnout, right? There's increased medical errors, there are susceptibility to substance use and abuse, and absenteeism, and lawsuits, all of these things. We know what happens then. But what I found is that there's something called the crossover effect that happens when the physician is burnt out. That crosses over into the marital relationship. What we also know is that the spouse and partner or family of the physician is the physician's greatest tool against the factors of burnout. So when you think about the family and the spouse being a foundation of support underneath the physician, when those burnout factors are crossing over into the marital relationship, the spouse and family are feeling it. They're feeling the distance. They're feeling the short snappiness. They are feeling disconnected. So that starts to erode the foundation under the physician. So when we start supporting the relationships that support the physician has better job satisfaction, they have a better outlook, burnout is less. That means that they are able to function better for the organization and for the patient. So when we reduce burnout by supporting the family, the patient wins, the organization wins, the family and the physician win.
I agree and I understand all of that. And I have had an episode where I had on one man and one woman who were both spouses of physicians, and we talked about some of these things. And also, when you pointed to statistics and things like that, um, people should care and organizations should care just because they do care. But if that's not enough, those reasons you cited are reasons that organizations should care. So,
Yes.
LynAnn, anything you'd like to add to that and share your own experience?
Yeah, that crossover effect that she was just speaking about is massive. And that is in every single area of a physician's journey, of their life, of their career. And there's, when you look at like the power of belonging, for example, which was a study that was done over 14,000 physicians. And it really showed that there were significantly lower odds of burnout when physicians reported having a strong sense of belonging at work. Now, what we see within the organizational environment and just within healthcare overall is that it's really difficult, especially for newer physicians or who are newer to the organization, to really get plugged in. There isn't a strong sense of community at within most organizations, even with individual practices. The pace is so fast that it takes an immense amount of intentionality to be able to create the time and prioritize those personal relationships that are going to help them feel that sense of community and really lower their burnout. The other impact in that is the divide between physicians and administration, especially. And in so many of the organizations that I've worked with, one of the primary contributors of physicians either leaving or becoming dissatisfied with their career and with the organization comes down to leadership, as well as especially the relationship between the two. And a lot of that is from communication, not understanding the other person's viewpoint, and really not understanding the challenges or barriers that they're facing to being successful. And when we can bring them all under one common language and understanding each other's perspective, giving them that sense of community, helping them feel like they're plugged in and connected to the other individuals within that organization, burnout also decreases, overall satisfaction increases, patient experience increases, and everybody wins.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely to all of that. The power of belonging, community, communication, all of that is so important. So we need to support individuals, we need to support teams, we need to support leaders, we need to support organizations, they need to support each other. And again, what is often left out of that is family, right? Is nobody's talking about that, and that is another factor. So Lisa, tell us a little more specifically about your work, about a success story.
So when we look at the family, what we know is medicine tends to drive the family dynamic. And most of the time, depending on when the spouse and the physician came together, these people may have moved for medical school, for residency, for fellowship, for first job. And we know that a lot of times physicians don't stay in their first job very long. So then they're moving again. So what's happening for the family is they are uprooting their lives for the physician's career. So they're having to start over again. They don't know anyone. They're maybe in a brand new town where they have to find a home, they have to find the school, they have to find the doctors for their children if they have children, and they have to begin again. So when they are constantly uprooted and have to, find their new home and what is their new normal, when they are not considered, that creates instability. And it creates disconnection between the physician and the spouse. So, if we can support the family through this process and beyond, keeping them involved, included, whether it's through an alliance on the county, state, or national level, whether it's through a group within the hospital or the practice, when, like LynAnn mentioned, that sense of belonging, it goes both ways. So for the physician within the practice and within the organization, but also with the family. If the family feels like they're out here on an island and they're isolated, then that belonging is gone. And what I found in my research was that 10 themes emerged. And the two strongest ones were feeling a sense of loneliness and feeling like a single parent, mostly because of long nights, weekends, call, etc. So when the spouse is at home and they're feeling lonely and they are feeling like a single parent, like they are the default parent, everything falls on them, then they are not happy. When they're not happy, a physician is more likely to leave. And we briefly mentioned earlier about physicians leaving practice. Well, statistics suggest that when a physician leaves a practice, it could cost anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million to replace them. So this is another reason why organizations and practices should care that families are happy.
Yeah. And that is such an important statistic. And Kim, you'd asked for examples or stories. I think one of the things that Lisa just mentioned that really reminds me of uh, one of the happiest examples of one of my clients was that he told me that one of his biggest wins from working with us was actually being able to make his wife smile again. Their relationship had really tanked before we started working together, and his relationship at home directly tied into his relationship with others at work. It damaged a lot of his interpersonal relationships with his team, caused a lot of conflict in the OR. Unfortunately, the staff were actually legitimately drawing short straws to see who had to work with him. And as we worked on his relationship with his wife, as that improved, we were simultaneously addressing the relationships at work, and everything just started to have this really positive spiral upwards. And I talked to him a year and a half after we worked together, and I said, "What was the biggest takeaway you had?" And he goes, "The fact that when I walk in the door, my wife still smiles at me now."
Mhm. I
And
love
that's
that.
something you can't necessarily put a dollar amount on. But
Right.
I guarantee you, his quality of patient care improved. His relationships at work improved. So the relationships, you create this ripple effect. His
Mhm.
relationships at work and the less stress that he was putting on the staff that he was working with, how that ties into their family life
Mhm.
as well as into the lives of the other physicians that they're supporting, patients that they're supporting. And it is such an important dynamic that I think health systems significantly overlook. And some of the things that Lisa's shared before, and a concern that she's had that I share as well, is we do so much as a health system to bring in the physician, and there's little effort put into making sure that the spouse or the family are supported in that onboarding experience as well. And that is a key indicator as to how long that physician's going to last in that organization, in that community, and how happy and productive they're going to be in their career.
So through some of my conversations, we have drawn some analogies to the military, right? Like medicine and the military, there are some analogies sometimes that can be drawn. And what we're speaking to today, as far as being uprooted and things like that. So Lisa, through your research and your work, have you learned anything, or have you, reached out or had any communication with like military spouses, or do you have anything in your mind of how they're related or what we can learn from how the military supports spouses and families?
Absolutely. So, first of all, my oldest son is military. He's in the Air Force. So, I've seen he and my daughter-in-law and their two children, I've seen them move many times. Gosh, I haven't actually sat down to count how many times, but within the US as well as overseas. And when I think about military and those frequent moves, there is definitely a parallel. The difference is that what I've seen in military families is that they're often, especially younger military families, they are likely living on base. So they are in this, condensed area with other people who get it, other people who are in the exact same boat. So sometimes with physician families, when we make all these moves, like I said, there may or may not be a medical alliance in that area or in that state. And so they have to then seek out people who get it and understand. When an organization does not have a group within it that's actively reaching out to that new family, again, as I mentioned earlier, they feel like they're on an island. They feel isolated. They feel lonely. So if there's no outreach to them, they are sitting there going, "Ah, I don't know anyone. I'm in this new place. I've got all these feels and I got to start all over again." Whereas with military families, there's often that built-in camaraderie and it's right there. It's literally right next door. And they have groups and they have, support right there. And medicine doesn't necessarily have that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, LynAnn, would you like to share a little more about like your work specifically, or if you have any examples related to this, or what we could be doing better?
What we could be doing better.
Where do we
I,
start, right, Lynn?
I know, where do we start? I think I've yet spoken to a person who doesn't realize that the system in its current form is broken and is in need of a major shift and overhaul. Something that I see in parallel with the military community as well as the physician community is the stigma. Excuse me, one second. Is the stigma related to mental health and the conversations around it. And I just had a colleague and friend of mine who's a cardiologist text me and just asked her how she was. Her response was, well, I just had a colleague of mine go out on emergency mental health leave, and the system just asked me to pick up most of her call. I'm drowning. I don't know what to do. I'm like, this needs to be part of our normal conversations. We need to be able to say, hey, yes, you are superhuman as a physician, but you are still human, and that is okay. Like,
Yeah.
we need to create the communities, create the conversations, create the normalcy of asking for support. But to ask for support, we have to create the psychological safety within the organizations. We have to create the community and the trust, especially trust between administration and the physicians, as well as physicians, nurses, physicians, and physicians. But without those pieces, it becomes incredibly difficult to truly solve the root causes of all of this. And that's where we see those negative spirals happen. And you see organizations and physicians really struggle unnecessarily. And one of the things that I've actually found that I've now started using with all of my clients is a device that is one of the first wearables that actually delivers an intervention. And so it's a clinical grade EEG headset. I actually used it this morning on my flight because I had a last minute business trip, have been up since 3 a.m., got maybe an hour of sleep last night. I'm like, I have to be ready for this podcast and show up fully. How do I do that? Well, I pulled out my little headset with, I guess you can't see that there, but it is a clinical grade EEG headset that's kind of like Bose headphones. And it actually guides, it's reading your brainwave state and it guides it into the brainwave state that you're wanting or needing to be effective, whether that's relaxation, sleep, focus, optimization. And it's been a complete game changer. And it's something that we're able to help, especially my physician clients who aren't wanting to necessarily talk about mental health or reach out to somebody for support. It's something that, while it's not necessarily a specific mental health tool, it delivers that ongoing intervention to help support them in any time that they're needing it, to be able to shift that. So we're not even having to have the conversation necessarily, while we still provide them the tools and the neuroscience-based strategies to be able to change their situation, whether that's the dynamics at work, whether it's their workflows, or whether it's the relationships that are so critical to their long-term success.
Mhm. That's great. So, as you both know, I've become an ambassador for the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, and they're all about reducing stigma related to mental health. And so, healthcare workers can seek confidential support, have access to whatever resources and tools they need. And when you're talking about communities, conversations, trust, all of that is so important. Did you want to tell us a little more about that tool or how people can find out more about it?
Absolutely. So it's called Vital Neuro, and they can find it at vitalneuro.com. I'm also happy to share, I have a $100 off discount code. It's available for both direct to consumers as well as organizations. And so if anybody would like to explore the benefits of it for their organization, it can be used to help identify heat maps of different departments that are under greater levels of stress, the ones that are actually moving the needle, and then also just show support and that can be provided to really help move the needle within those organizations. So I'll provide that discount code for you. And then if anybody is wanting to look at it from an organizational perspective, they're welcome to reach out to me and I can connect them.
Okay. Thanks, LynAnn. So, Lisa, did you want to tell us a little more about the things you're doing these days and what you think we need to do?
Oh gosh. Well, I have a podcast, as you mentioned earlier, the MedLife Support Podcast. And on it, we have candid conversations on life and medicine, relationships, and wellness beyond the white coat. And I feel privileged to have had both Kim and LynAnn as guests, as well as many other amazing folks. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is really being able to get the word out there about the importance of our physician mental health, supporting their families, and how this supports the organization and the patients. But also, I have a course coming out. It's called Mastering the MedLife Matrix, and it's for physicians and their partners. And we know that mostly it's going to be the partners, but but it really benefits both of them. And I have an ebook called Wellness Beyond the White Coat. So those are some things that I'm doing, as well as I too am an ambassador for the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, and I am a member of my county alliance. I'm the president-elect of the Florida Medical Association Alliance, and I sit on the board for the American Medical Association Alliance as their director of programs. So I am really in it when it comes to supporting physician families, and I love talking about it, and I'm thrilled to be here with you both today and having this conversation.
Thanks, Lisa. That's great. LynAnn, would you like to tell us a little more about your work for anyone that's curious and how you're supporting physicians?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've taken a unique approach to improving both physician well-being as well as just overall success. And we look at it, I look at more like a three-legged stool. So if you look at clinical success or just overall career success for a physician as the seat, it's held up by three legs. The first of which is the professional acumen or that business acumen, how you're actually growing your practice, how you're doing that without burnout, or if you're employed, how are you hitting the productivity goals that your organization has set for you without sacrificing everything outside of the organization. The second pillar can be tied into things that really fall under leadership development. So the more leadership acumen that a physician has, the more smoothly their practice is going to run, the more smoothly their OR is going to run, the better relationships that they have, because they're developing the communication frameworks as well as the influence within the organization to actually move the needle in the way that they're needing to. And then that third pillar really is the well-being piece. So not looking at it as the term that it seems to be going around now more within the community of where it's become a soft skill or a soft thing to look at. It really is a performance multiplier. And we know that physicians who are burned out are not operating at their best. Their safety scores are worse than their non-burned out counterparts. And then their productivity often decreases as well. So whether that's a 0.2 FTE decrease, or they're just struggling more to actually hit the productivity goals that are necessary, those are the things that we need to change. And so in our programs, we actually address all three pillars: the business acumen or practice growth and productivity improvement, the leadership development, and the well-being as a performance multiplier, because that's the only way that we're actually going to help raise that entire ship of success so that they can have all of the tools in their tool belt to be able to accomplish the level of success that they desired when they first started this journey.
Yeah, that's terrific. Thank you very much. And I have one more question for Lisa, which is kind of a chicken or the egg thing. So some physician coaches have shared with me that they're coaching physicians because their spouses found the coaches and told their physician spouse, you have to do this, right? Like the spouses recognized that there were some things that their doctor spouses needed help with, and they reached out and said, hey, you need support with this. From your perspective too, we need to be proactive in supporting physician families. So how can we get the word out more? Like, how would this be happening?
Oh, how do we support the families? How do we get the word out that we can support the families? Well, having conversations. The word gets out by word of mouth, right? And by presence. So I'm doing my best to get out there on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, podcasts, just to get people to recognize that this is an issue. Because if they are not aware that this is an issue, then they're not going to do anything about it. And when it comes to organizations, I think we need to keep talking about the importance of supporting the family and how it in turn supports the patient and improves the organization's bottom line, because we know that that is very important to the organization. And so if we can continue to have conversations about how important this is, why it's important, and why they should care, I'm here for it. Having conversations.
Okay, that sounds great. So we're on our way. We'll keep going. So great. As we conclude, I would like to ask each of you, what is your take-home action message for our audience?
Hmm.
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 I think
Go ahead, LynAnn.
my take-home message is really normalizing the conversations that need to happen.
Mhm.
Conversations like this. Doing a self-assessment on where are the areas that I feel tension, and then how can I look for a resource in that area to support me. And some of that just comes with being truly honest with ourselves. And I know a lot of the high performers that I work with, myself included, the word burnout and your name don't fit in the same sentence in most of our minds, right? But it's important to start recognizing those signs and symptoms, because there are interventions available. There are tools and strategies that can be used to help improve your life. But so many of our highest performing docs or highest achieving docs don't know where to look, and they don't even know what's available. And so, to Lisa's point about having conversations, start as you start struggling, or as you recognize that, hey, I'm just feeling overwhelmed, I'm tired, I'm frustrated. Talk to a colleague, find a mentor, reach out to a person and just have a conversation and say, hey, have you ever dealt with this? And just that can help normalize it of, oh, wait, there's somebody else that's dealt with this. There's somebody else that has found a tool or a solution or something that can actively help. And you don't have to go through it by yourself.
Thank you. And
Yes.
any of us could provide doctors with resources or give them a direction if they didn't know, right? Or their
Yeah.
family. So
Like
thanks. Oh,
attending your upcoming event.
exactly, our physician retreat. Thank you for that. Yes. And Lisa.
So I often say that communication is the key to connection. And that's important because often the physician and their spouse start to feel disconnected when burnout and when the gravity of medical practice ripples its way into their relationship. So maintaining that open line of communication between each other and remembering that no matter what, it's the two of you against the problem, not the two of you against each other, that you are both on the same team. So having open communication between the spouse or partner and the physician is super important because oftentimes physician spouses tend to put their needs on the back burner. They tend to invalidate their feelings because they look at the physician and they go, oh, but they have such a hard job. They're saving lives. So what I do is less valuable and is not as important. So then resentment can creep in, disconnection happens, and then they're not on the same page. But we have to remember that we are on the same team, no matter what.
I love it the way you said that because this could be a whole other episode where sometimes people would say medicine is the third partner in the marriage, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the spouse might feel that the doctor is married to medicine and that they're the third person, where you're saying you put the spouse couple together and then medicine is the other variable.
Yes.
So that's huge. That could be a other whole conversation. So I might have to have you both back. But thanks again for being my guest today. I really appreciated this conversation.
Thank you for having us, Kim.
Thank you for having us, Kim.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome. So thank you for being part of our Stand Up for Doctors global neighborhood, a place where physicians and those who care about them can connect, empower, recharge, and celebrate. You'll find more stories like this in our White Coats book series. And if you're a doctor, we'd love to welcome you to our inaugural physician retreat this October, where these conversations can continue in person, as LynAnn so generously alluded to. And we would be honored to have you join us. And if you'd like to help sustain this podcast, please consider sponsoring an episode or connecting us with a mission aligned sponsor. And links are in the show notes, including how to reach out to our guests. And in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.